Hi, welcome to Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is going to be a neat chapter because it allows us to put navigation on our web page and how we can let our users move around from site to site, page to page. So we're going to basically cover how to create usable navigation, talk about some do's and don'ts, build some text-based navigation, use graphics for navigation and linking, use lists for navigation, build horizontal and for navigation, build vertical navigation bars using background color and graphics to enhance the navigation, and then create hover rollovers. So so navigation is basically, we've got a web page and need to move from this page to that page and back and forth and so on and so forth. We might need to be able to move within a page, up and down or here and there, and within different parts of a paragraph or a picture or whatever the case may be. We need to be able to give our users the ability to move around and do it easily. They ask some great questions here. Where am I? Where can I go? How do I get there? How do I get back to where I started? And it's very important to be able to go back or get back to the beginning. So think about that. We need to do the current page and the type of content they're reviewing. Need to know that information. Why are they in relation? So basically, why is this page in relation to the rest of the website? It needs to be consistent and easy to use and easy to read. Basically, alternatives to the browser's back button. So because that's what users are always going to do, is hit that back button, and so give them alternatives to use that and click on other things to move around within there. So if we look at this figure 9-1, man, there's a lot going on there. And on the left hand side, we've got a navigation. At the top, we've got a navigation. We've got a search bar. Too much, too little. There's even a bunch of links here in the center as well. So what is too much? What is not enough? Those are things we kind of have to discuss and figure out. So one thing that this previous one had was this thing called a breadcrumb path. What that meant is they started here in this legislative branch, and they're now in research, and they're in special collections, and within special collections was an oral history. So if they need to go back to the previous section, it's there. To go back even further, they can go there, and they can actually see the breadcrumbs that they've gone from this page to that page to that page, and they can get back very, very easily. So breadcrumbs is always a great thing to provide as well. Do we always have to use it? I would say probably not. But if you're going inside of a page that goes inside of another page, that goes inside of another page, it's probably best to have a breadcrumb path displayed on the screen for folks to basically get back to a previous section, or maybe skip over that and go to the previous section as well. So again, one thing we want to do is information overload. Man, there's just we can put a whole lot of data on that screen, but what is too much? I've been to a lot of sites that just provide way too much energy, too much information, too much everything. So again, they talk about these things. Create manageable information segments. So break your content into smaller files, then link them together. Provide logical grouping choices. Keep a flat hierarchy. So make sure things are in a hierarchical type of order, and make sure they're in the proper order. It says a good rule to follow is that users should not have to click more than 2 or 3 times to get to the information they desire. Control page length. Do not make users scroll through a never-ending length of pages. Okay. Long files also mean long downloads. Provide plenty of internal links to help users get around, and keep the pages short. You can judge your page length by pressing the page down key. If you have to press it more than 2 or 3 times from the top, you need to break up your content. Use hyperlinks to connect facts, relationships, and concepts. This thing's called contextual linking. We'll get more into that. We'll talk a lot about wiki pages when we get to that particular information. So building a navigation structure. Okay, so let's kind of step through the process. So the very first thing we have is we're going to have 3 chapters. Okay, the first thing we need is a home page, and from the home page we're going to be able to get to the table of contents and a sitemap, either one. And then from the table of contents and the sitemap, we're going to be able to get to chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then inside of there, we basically also have some topics. We'll talk more about that as well. So this is basically the website we have. How do we basically build a navigation to move around within this website? So what we have is we've got an index, table of contents, TOC, a sitemap, chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. So we basically have 6 files. Okay. Oh, and we also have a style sheet, an external style sheet. And the reason we do that is because we want to share the style amongst all 6 pages. So in order to do that, we use an external, so that way if we ever need to change or update the style, we can do it in one place, and it affects all 6 of those pages. Okay, so I have all of those files basically over here in this folder, chapter 1, 2, 3, index, sitemap, TOC, and then our styles.css site, our page. Okay. So the first thing we do is we have this table of contents. So this is the TOC page. Okay, so this is what the TOC page looks like right here. Okay, now granted this is the finished product, but realize this is what it looks like. We have a table of contents. We've got a jumped that we're going to talk to you a little bit later. We got chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Inside of there we have 3 topics in each chapter. We've also got a back to the top. Okay, so when I click that, I'm back to the top of the screen. So that way there, if my screen was, we're going to basically do this. So as I scroll down, if I need to get back to the top of that screen, I click, and it will take me back to the top of that page. Okay, always good to have that, even if it's a short page like this, because this page can grow. So basically just be aware of that. So we have that page. So let's take a look at the code. So here we have the TOC. Here we've got an H2 tag, and here is a href to chapter 1. So there's another file, chapter1.html. It's going to be say chapter 1 is the text. We've got a URL inside there for each one of the different topics. Okay. But for right now, this is what it will look like. Okay. It has, oh come on. So we've got our HTML, here's our title, here is our link, we're linked to the style sheet. Here's our table of contents H1, so that's the big giant header at the top. We've got a subheader of chapter 1, and it's an H2 tag, and it's basically got an unordered list of topic 1, 2, and 3. And same thing for chapter 2, same thing for chapter 3. So notice we have nothing inside of this particular file at this time. Okay. So it would look pretty generic. There would be no clickable links, basically anything in there at all. So the very first thing we're going to do is let's take a look at the style sheet. So here's our style sheet. So we've got our body text is going to have a default font family Georgia, and it's going to be a default serif font. Our LI items are going to have a line height of 125%, so going to be 1/4% bigger than they normally are. We're going to have a class within a P tag that has a margin of top margin of 0, a right margin of 20, a bottom margin of 0, and a left margin of 30. So all of our paragraphs are going to have that. Then we've got this # header nav, comma # footer nav. So basically we have 2 IDs for the header nav and footer nav. They're going to share the same content at this point. So they're both going to have a margin left auto, margin right auto, which means what? That means that particular item when used will be centered within whatever div they're in, or whatever the page size is at that point. It's going to have a padding of 10. It's going to have a border solid 1 pixel black. It's going to have a width of 300 pixels, and the text inside of this item is going to be center. Then we have a class called current, and it's going to have a font weight of bold. Okay, so that's basically the style sheet. So we're going to apply the we're going to go in here to the table of contents, and we're going to apply this page nav ID to jump down to this chapter. Okay, I'm sorry, header nav. Should have been looking at the header nav. Here it is. So PID header nav. So what does that basically do? That's going to have a margin left. Okay, so basically it's build a box that's going to have a width of 300 pixels. It's going to have a black solid border, and the text inside is going to be centered. Okay. It says it's going to have, so here's our ending P tag right there. So everything between here is going to be inside that box. So we've got an href to the index.html that says home. And we've got a pipe symbol that's just a separator. That doesn't do anything. And we've got a span class current, which means it's going to bold that. And it says table of contents, and it's got another pipe symbol, and it's going to have another link to the sitemap page. Okay, so notice that we don't have a link to the table of contents because we're in the table of contents. So it's going to have home, pipe, table of contents, pipe, and sitemap inside of the box. Then we got a so let's stop there. So then we got a header nav home. So that's what it looks like right there. Okay. They have us build the href for the index, the href for the sitemap, and then the table of contents is going to have the class current in there. Okay. We already talked about the header nav. So again, this all basically goes with the header nav. There's the current for the font weight bold. So we save it, and when we get done, we now have this box for our navigation, okay, which basically looks like that. Home is clickable and sitemap is clickable. So next thing we do is we need to create an href for chapter 1. So we go ahead within the H1 tag there, which says chapter 1, we add an anchor tag href to that to point to that file. Okay, we do that for chapter 2 and 3. When we get done, those 3 items are now clickable, and so they basically look like that. Okay, they are clickable. It says adding an internal linking. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add, I like to call them bookmarks. We can put bookmarks anywhere we want on our page, and what that does, that's a placeholder for us to use an anchor href tag to get to. So all I got to do is just put a name equals top and then an ending a. So it's an anchor tag. It just basically gave that a name. It gave it a place for us to point to when we use another anchor tag. So if I look over here at my table of contents, sure enough, here just below body I've got a name equals top and then a. So now I've got some place I can actually link to this, and it's going to take me there. Now, at the bottom of our page, I'm going to put an anchor tag href, and it's going to point to # top. Okay, so whenever we have what I call a bookmark, to reference it, we have to put a # in front of it to basically point to that. It says back to top. So if I look at my table of contents, at the very bottom, there's my footer, ID footer. We'll talk about that in a second, and it basically has href # top back to the top. So again, like I showed you earlier, I can click on that thing and it's going to take me back to the top of the page. That's basically what it looks like now. And it basically is returning me to somewhere in here, but since it's a non-visible item, it's just going to take us there, and that's all it's going to do. Okay, so now we're going to add a page navigation. Okay, so within my table of contents, I'm going to have a PID equals page nav. Well, if we go back to our style sheet, a page nav. Do we have a page nav? Wow. I don't even see page nav, so. Okay, well, maybe it's on the other page. Let's go to table of contents. Is page nav here? No. Okay, so I got PID page nav, jump down to this chapter, and then let's talk about it. So then I've got this href equals # chapter 1 # chapter 2 chapter 3. So if I basically look at that now, notice that I now have a name chapter 1, name chapter 2, name chapter 3. So when I basically I lost my place for a sec. Oh, table of contents. Am I in the right spot? Yeah. So yeah, right here. So href # chapter 1 is going to jump to this chapter 1. Okay. href # chapter 2 is going to automatically jump to this chapter 2. And same way with that one. And these are all going to be inside of the ID page nav. So it says continue working on that. So add a P element and set the ID attribute to page nav. So just basically an ID at that point. Add text to the P element to show in the following code ID page nav, jump down to this chapter, and so we just basically did that. Okay. Now we've got the name chapter 1, name chapter 2, name chapter 3. And how that works now is if I click on this guy, notice it just put a box around chapter 1. I can actually hit the enter key right now and it will take me to chapter 1. I can click here, it jumps to chapter 2. I can click here and it jumps down to chapter 3. It doesn't actually do anything. It just takes me to that item on my page. Okay. Okay, so linking to external documents. So we need to link to chapter 1. So now, if I go to chapter 1, here I've got, well, chapter 1, let's see, where's topic? Okay, so here's topic 1. And what I do is I give it a name of topic 1. So again, that's kind of like a bookmark. I can actually reference that now in a anchor tag. So, and again, how do I utilize those? I have to do a pound topic 1 to basically utilize it. So going back to our table of contents, if I look now, I now have href chapter 1. So this guy right here, this H2 tag is going to point just to the chapter 1.html. If I click on one of these links down here, it's going to take me to chapter 1.html # topic 1. So not only is it going to go to that page, but it's going to go directly to that ID tag topic 1, the name tag I should say. So how does that work? Well, I'm here. If I go to chapter 1, topic 3, jump straight down there. Now notice I can't scroll down any further, but it did jump down to this topic. It would try to bring that topic to the top of the page if it could, but it can't. So it just basically went there, and that's where we're at. So it's kind of cool. So So it's kind of neat. So not only so I can go to a page, I can actually go to a part, another place on that page through that that name tag. So we do that for all of our different chapters, and it basically allows us to jump directly to a particular page topic. I think if I were to do this, if I were to shrink that web page down and I went to topic 2, you'll notice topic 2 now basically appears at the top of the page because the screen's big enough to do that. So our home is going to take us to these two guys right here. Notice I can't get home and I can't get directly to chapter 1, 2, or 3. I can only get to these two sites. So if we look at home, this is basically what home looks like. It allows me to get to table of contents and the sitemap, just like in the book here. That's all I can get to. So if I need to get to chapter 1, I have to go through one of these two guys to get there. I don't think I don't have a footer in the home. So what page do they want us to? Oh, they want us to be in chapter 1. So chapter 1, we basically at the bottom, we have an ID footer nav. So it's going to build a box. And inside of there I've got previous, chapter 1, and then next. Okay. So previous is going to point to the table of contents. The middle, so it's going to have a pipe symbol, and then it's going to say chapter 1, which is current, which is going to make that bold. Notice there's no link. And then it's got another pipe symbol, and it's going to basically say chapter 2. And inside of there, it's going to be next. So again, if we take a look at that, if I go to chapter 1, at the very bottom, there's previous, chapter 1. Again, we're at chapter 1, so it's just bolded, and then next. If I point to that, it takes me to TOC. If I go here, I'm looking at the very bottom left there. It says chapter 2.html. Okay. Yeah, so they're basically creating all of that. Yeah, so there's previous, chapter 1, next. We just looked at that. Now, contextual linking. I kind of touched on this in the beginning, and contextual linking is basically having links to items within the page, and Wikipedia is basically very, very big on that. So here's an example. So if I go to Wikipedia, here's one on the barn owl. Notice that it says, barn owl is the most widely distributed species of owl. Well, widely distributed, what's that mean? So it actually takes me to whatever that is. Okay, so cosmopolitan distribution, it talks about what that means in the animal life. Okay, and I can come back, it talks about the owl. I click on the owl, and then it has a generic owl page. And it basically goes on, and basically those are called contextual links. As you're talking about something, you have a link to explain that item just a little bit more. And that's what it basically is talking about here on the next page. So it's got all of these contextual links. So our navigation summary. So we've got home, table of contents, and index. We've got a top at the end of each chapter. So if I were to go to the next chapter, and let me resize the page. And if I scroll to the bottom, I don't have a top. Oh, thought I did. Okay. But home does, or table of contents does. If I scroll down, I can go back to the top of the page. Okay. We can add those for each page if you feel there's a need. Not hard to do. Just put a name top, and at the bottom you basically have a anchor tag to that pound sign name, and it will take you right there. Okay, so let's say we want to use graphics for navigation. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible, but realize that some folks might not get what your picture means. They might miscue things. We also want to minimize download time. If the picture is too busy or too large, it might take a little while to bring down. It might not size right on that particular page. It might size too small. So these are all things you really have to take into consideration. So make sure you use the Alt attribute so that if the picture doesn't show up, it at least has something on the page to let the person know what's going on, even the web developer. So here's Barnes & Noble with graphics. So this has graphics for each button, and then it basically shows with the graphics turned off, and these are the alt tags that are showing up here. So at barnesandnoble.com, spend 25%, get free shipping. My BNN, BNN Studio, BNN Reviewer, Book Club. So again, you can kind of see so if the graphics happen to disappear somehow, you could still maneuver through this page somewhat just because of the alt tags. MapQuest uses icons for their navigation, but they also have words next to it. Because if I didn't have maps there, I have no idea what that globe means. If I see a car there, I don't know what that means. If I see fingers walking, I kind of know what that means. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what that means, but I know what the words next to it means. So icons work in that sense, and they're small enough that they're not going to really take up too much space or download too much to basically kind of cause that an issue. So and that's a good, instead of just text up there, that kind of breaks it up and looks kind of nice. Using lists for navigation. So here I create an unordered list, which is bullet points, and I've got this thing called ID nav list. We'll talk about what that style does here in a second. But it's basically is a list. Now, if I didn't have any code for nav list up there, it would look just like this. I would have a bullet point for each one of those items. Okay. So we're going to change that. So let's go into what that nav list looks like. So I've got UL # nav list. It says the only way you can use this is within an unordered list. And basically it's an ID tag because it has a #. It's got padding of 0 and margin of 0. And then we go ahead and add list style type none. That means remove the bullet points. I don't want any bullet points. Okay, I want it to be treated as a list, but remove the bullet points. So if we take a look at, I believe, yeah, let's look at vertical navigation here. So vertical navigation, let's take a look at that guy. And what we've got at the top, I've got a body tag that has a default font, and here's my UL # nav list. Padding is 0, margin left is 300, the list style type none, and then it basically has a UL. So let me do this. Let me comment this stuff out for now. Let me save it. Come back here and refresh. So that's basically what it looks like. Okay, so again, if I were to go into here and comment these three things, let me comment this out. If I commented that guy out, we basically now have bullet points. Okay, so to remove the bullet points, I basically add this style list-style type none. And when I save that and refresh, the bullet points basically disappear. So there's our navigation. Not much of a navigation, it just kind of sits there. But let's talk about what we can do some more. So that's basically what it changed to now. So we got rid of the bullet points. So now we're going to basically say, well, let's expand this a little bit more. So I'm going to say, let's go into the next one. So I don't want to get into that yet. So if we go into this horizontal nav bar, what we've got is I've got padding 0, margin 0, list style type none, so that removes the bullet points. And then I've got UL nav list A. So this says UL nav list LI items. So all the LI items are going to have a display in line. Ooh, what does that mean? And then it says all of our anchor tags within the nav list are going to have a margin right of 20 pixels. So if we take a look at that guy, that's exactly what it just did. So it made sure there's 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, and 20 pixels on the right side of each one of those. So, but notice that it basically put this list in line, which is kind of cool. So now we've got a nice nav bar that goes sideways across the top. And we're still using a list, either an ordered list or a number list. Either way, we can basically have it go in line. Okay, so that's basically what that particular guy was doing right there. Nav list, display in line. Display it this way. So basically that's what that little box there is showing. So again, this is for the overall nav, the overall UL, and this is for the UL, this is for the list items within the UL, the display in line, and this is for all the anchor tags within the nav list UL. Make sure it has a right margin of 20 pixels. So let's customize the horizontal. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a UL nav list. We've got these two, but we're going to add these down here. We've got this nav list A tag, so we've got a margin right of 5 pixels. We've got a border solid 1 pixel, background color of whatever color that is. Okay, and then I go ahead and add a padding of 5 pixels at the top, 10 at the right, 5 at the bottom, and 10 at the left, and decoration equals none. Okay, so it says set the decoration to none to remove the underlining from the links. So remember, hyperlinks always have an when you basically hover over them, or just in displaying a link, it has an underline. We don't want to see the underline, so we say text-decoration none, removes the underline. Okay, so that's basically what this guy is doing right here. So that removes the underline, displays it as a block. The width is 140. It's got a border of 2 pixels and it's solid. The padding all the way around is 5 pixels. Again, it's width of 140. It doesn't matter what's inside there, the width is going to be 140. And it's got a margin top of 5 pixels. Okay, so I knew it wouldn't work. So let me add that real quick over here to the Okay, so we have that in there. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go back to this guy right here, and I'm going to refresh it, and sure enough, look what it did. It put boxes around each one and made sure they padded. So again, kind of a nice way to, again, notice that the underlines are gone. So I mean, we could even go a little further. We could have done something like okay, we'll change it to font weight bold, just to add a little decoration there. So we go back over to horizontal and refresh, and basically made that bolded. So kind of nice, kind of a nice way to change things up a little bit. So, and that's kind of what they're doing there. They did a background. Well, why didn't my background color change? Did my background color change? Background color. Huh. Nope, it didn't. Wow. I wonder why. Okay. So we can control the navigation bar width. So your horizontal navigation bar will wrap if a user makes their browser window small enough. To keep this from happening, add a width property to the UL element, and I'm showing the following. So if I type in width, and save it, and if I basically do a refresh, yeah, it's not working for some reason. Huh. So that's strange. Doesn't do the background color. You know, maybe I got to put off. I shouldn't have to. Huh. Let's try it over here. Whoop, let's try it over here. Nope, it's not working either. Okay, well, there must be something overriding that, and I don't understand why. Margin right, solid border. Okay. Okay, so again, that'll keep that from happening when we resize. It'll just basically force that stuff to go outside of the picture at that point. So we can also basically do this. We want to make sure that because if you look at mine over here, notice that each one of these is a little, the boxes are basically the same, you know, they're just a size bigger than the text, so they are going to be different sizes. Well, if we want them to all be the same, we need to basically do that as well. We would need to say, you know, make each box basically the same size, make the boxing part of it the same width. We can also do a float left. So in the previous example, the horizontal navigation bar are based on size of the text they contain. If you want to have all navigations buttons to be the same width, increase the size buttons, you have to change this display type to a block to be set a consistent width, and then float the boxes. Oh, that's why, because I believe mine's set as a block. Is it set as a block? Maybe not. So let's do a float left, and let's see what happens. So and it didn't do what I wanted it. Let's see what else I got to do here. So this apparently float needs to be up in the list item. And then the display as a block. And make the width 7 ems and text line center, and let's see what that does. I think the float basically being up in there is what was wrong. So there we go. So now each one of these boxes is the same size. It's floating left. Life is good. Okay, so we got a nice nav bar there now. Really nice nav bar. We can do the same thing with the horizontal. List style none. Text decorations. Okay, so let's take a look at that guy. I think it's already done, yeah. So margin, well, it's got a margin 0. Okay. And padding 0, list style none, it's got text decoration none, display block, width, there's a border, let's see what that looks like. Yeah. Now notice it puts the box around each item. Okay, so I think they want us to do a little bit more here. So they want a padding of 5, a margin top of 5. They want a background color of CCCCFF, and they want the text to be a color of black, it looks like. $140, 2 pixels solid. Yeah, they did want that. Let's change it to their color instead of solid. It will default to black unless we put a color in there. So 0033cc, and let's save it, and let's see what we got here. Okay. Let's add one more just so it looks halfway decent. There we go. So now we can center the text within the boxes as well. So now we got a nice vertical. Over here is a nice horizontal. Okay. I think I knew what I did with my problem with the horizontal is, yep, I've only got 5 characters in there. There we go. That should fix it. Yep, there it did. Okay. So, so there we are. We can use background and graphics to enhance it. So what we can do is once you've read a chapter, you can actually have it so that a picture of a check mark appears on. That's a graphic. That's not a check mark. That is a graphic you have to get to put in there. So you would actually say a.chapter padding left 30 pixels. And so you'd have to leave space for that check mark. And then you would say a visited.chapter, and you would have a background image of a red check mark. Repeat, no repeat, position is left center. Okay, so when a link is visited, this is when you would put that JPEG of a red check mark in there. So as they went to each link, we would know that by the red check mark as opposed to the visited. Indicating location. So here we are in a list of links of our navigation. How do we know what page we're on? Well, here that is basically a red background with white text, so we know we're on education right now. So how would we do that? Well, oh, they're going to show us, so they're just going to tell us about it. Okay. Right. So here's how they do it. For each one of those pages, we would basically have a current font weight bold. Okay. So in this nav list, we would say we'd have a link to the home page, a link to the how-to, a link to the balloon clubs, a link to the festivals, a link to where to ride, and a link to the FAQ. But the current one we're on would not be a link. It would just say history in bold, so we would know where they're there. So like in the previous example, what we would do is have a red background and white text, so we would know we're on history right now. So we could do that as well. Here they do the background color of F9000000. And so what it would look like is this. So each one of these buttons would basically do that, and that one would not have a link. So let me show you what that would look like. Okay, so here's the horizontal. I'm going to do it for About Us. So so in the nav list, so let me add the current. I'm going to say so let me comment this guy out. I want to get rid of it. Oh, so instead of that, we're just going to say span ID equals current About Us, and change that to an ending span tag. And let's see if my little thing works here. So I do a refresh, and nope, it didn't work. Let me see what I did wrong. Nav list, current weight bold. Oh, let's try that. I thought I had that. Yeah, current background color blue, color white, font weight bold. This is those things, the web pages just frustrate you to no end. Okay, I think I figured it out. So what I did, now if you look, this is a UL #nav list. That means it's for it can only be used in the nav list within a it can only be used within a UL, but it only pertains to anchor tags. Okay, so all of this did not pertain to anything that I was doing down here for this About Us. So what I had to do is, for my current, I had to add all of this stuff down here as well, and I changed the background color to a dark blue. I changed the color of the text to white. Anyways, it basically does the same stuff as this does up here, except it's different. So now when it runs, this About Us is non-clickable, but everything else is clickable. So that means the current page we're on is About Us. Okay, and that's kind of how you'd want to do that for all of your pages. So if I clicked on Portfolio, the navigation for that would be, Portfolio would now be a dark blue background, and About Us would now be a hyperlink. Okay, so that was painful. That was very painful. Okay, so rollover. So another thing we can do is, I kind of touched on this on the previous class, is having this thing called hovering over the a linkable item, and it will basically do things. Okay, let's see if we can get there. So it's called a hover. So let's do this. So coming over here, I'm going to add a UL #nav list. So this only works in the nav list ID. And it's only going to be for the a hover. So it's going to be for the anchor tag, but only when we hover. The left square brace, and we're going to have, the color is going to be, I believe that is white. So $FFF. The background color is going to be $0033CC, and it's going to have a font weight bold. Put in my ending brace. Well, before I save it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rid of this guy and comment this guy out. And we'll save it and come back over here and refresh. So it looks fine until I do what? I hover over each one, and look at that. Pretty cool. So really neat. So allows you to kind of let the folks know, hey, you've got this selected. If you click now, it's going to do something. We can also use a button JPEG to do the same thing. Again, we have a graphic of this is called blue BTN JPEG and light blue BTN JPEG. We have those so that when we hover over something, it's going to display a different picture. Okay, so here I basically say The nav button is that. It's going to have some text floating on top of it, but when we hover, it's going to basically display a different image. We can also do this. We can also say underlining on the hover. A is text decoration none. We can say A hover. Text decoration is an underline, so when you basically put it on something, it will go ahead and underline. So that would look like this. So now I refresh this guy, and when I hover, you can't see it, but there's an underline underneath there. It's light blue, but it does underline. Okay, so that's it for Chapter 9. I would definitely say go through the hands-on project, because it really is going to help you a lot going through that guy. So you basically are going to open up this horizontal nav bar that I had up earlier, and you're going to basically play around with that guy and add code to it. Okay, so please go through that. It's going to help tremendously as you step through and add things. You saw I learned from a few things by my mistakes, so just be aware that if things don't go as planned, then there's probably something that may be overriding something else. Or look at, like I didn't look at, I thought it was a nav list, but it was only pointing to the anchor tags. So that had no effect on anything that was not an anchor tag. So I had to basically change that as well. So any questions, shoot an email and we'll basically go from there. Okay, see you next time.